You've heard the term ghost ship, right? Well, this is the ghost ship, the one that kind of started it all, the Mary Celeste. It was found floating in the middle of the ocean, in perfect condition, with just one tiny problem. Every single person on board was gone. So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the chilling discovery of the ship itself. Then, the 10 people who disappeared. We'll get to the big question at the heart of it all, and of course, dig into all the theories, from the logical to the downright bizarre. Finally, we'll look at the ship's so-called curse, and why we're all still so fascinated by this story. All right, let's set the scene. I want you to picture it December 4th, 1872. You're on a ship called the Dei Gratia, and you are smack in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We're talking nothing but water for miles and miles, and you're about to make a discovery that's going to become one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. So the crew spots another ship through their spyglass, but something's off. It's sailing strangely, kind of erratically, and its sails are a mess. As they get closer, they start hailing it, yelling out, and they get nothing back, just this creepy silence. No one's on the deck. So a boarding party goes over, climbs aboard, and they find a ghost ship, the Mary Celeste, completely and utterly abandoned. Now, here's the first really weird clue. This wasn't a wreck. Not even close. The Mary Celeste was in great shape, totally seaworthy. There were no signs of a big storm, no signs of a pirate attack or a fight. It wasn't sinking. It was just empty. And this is the paradox that makes this mystery so compelling. I mean, signs of normal life were everywhere. There were meals on the tables, partly eaten. The captain's log was just sitting out. Everybody's personal belongings were neatly packed away in their quarters. And the valuable cargo, over 1,700 barrels of alcohol, was completely untouched. So what was missing? The two most important things: every single person and the ship's only lifeboat. A ship is just wood and sails. This mystery, it's about the people who disappeared from it. So let's talk about who they were. 10. 10 people. That's a number that represents a huge tragedy. 10 lives just erased. And there were no survivors to tell the tale, and no bodies were ever found. And this is what makes it so heartbreaking. This wasn't just a crew of sailors, this was a family. The captain, Benjamin Briggs, a highly respected guy, was traveling with his wife, Sarah, and, get this, their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, a toddler. Along with them was a crew of 7 very experienced seamen. That detail, a young family on board, it just makes the whole thing so much more chilling. The ship's log gave us our last real clue. The final entry was made on November 25th. The ship was found a full 10 days later, drifting 400 miles away from its last recorded position. And that final entry, it mentioned calm seas and good weather. Everything was completely normal. And then, just silence. So when you put all these facts together, a perfectly sound ship, a missing crew, that 10-day gap of absolute silence, it all leads us to the one central question at the heart of this legend. What happened? It's such a simple question, right? But it's the one that has fueled this mystery for over 150 years. What could possibly make a seasoned captain, his family, and his entire crew abandon a perfectly safe ship in the middle of the vast empty Atlantic Ocean? With no clear answer, people started coming up with theories. Lots of them. So let's explore some of the biggest ones, from the plausible to the, pretty out there. Okay. Theory number 1 is probably the most widely accepted scientific explanation. It focuses on the cargo, those 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. The idea is that maybe some of them leaked, creating a buildup of really volatile fumes down in the hold. The crew, fearing a massive, catastrophic explosion was about to happen, decided to get off the ship, just temporarily. Now, this theory sounds pretty compelling. It gives a logical reason for leaving a good ship, and it totally explains why the lifeboat was missing, but it's not perfect. Why would they leave before an actual explosion? And would a careful captain really put his family in a tiny boat on the open ocean? I mean, that's a huge risk. And if the danger passed and the fumes cleared, why wouldn't they just go back to the Mary Celeste? It leaves a lot of questions unanswered. So what if the danger wasn't on the ship, but under it? Another theory suggests a seaquake, an underwater earthquake. It could have shaken the vessel so violently that the crew panicked, thinking the ship was about to break apart, and they fled to the lifeboat. The biggest problem with this theory? The Mary Celeste was found with everything perfectly in place. Nothing was tossed around, which you'd absolutely expect after a violent event like that. And of course, people's minds immediately went to the dark side of human nature. Foul play. Could the crew have mutinied and murdered the Briggs family? Or maybe Captain Briggs himself staged the whole thing as some kind of elaborate insurance scam. These darker theories were really popular in the early days. But the evidence on board just didn't back it up. Investigators found absolutely no signs of a struggle or any violence. And think about it. The valuable cargo and all the personal belongings were untouched. That's not what you'd expect from pirates or mutineers. On top of that, Captain Briggs was known to be an honorable man, and the ship just wasn't insured for enough money to make fraud worthwhile. So foul play was pretty quickly ruled out. But even after the incident, the story of the Mary Celeste doesn't end. The ship itself seemed to carry the weight of its own mystery, and it started to get a reputation for being cursed. So the ship was salvaged and put back to sea, but it was just never the same. Bad luck seemed to follow it everywhere. It changed owners over and over again, and it seemed like every one of them ended up facing bankruptcy or some other disaster. Its final sad end came in 1885 when its last captain deliberately crashed it on a reef to commit insurance fraud. And even then, the ship seemed to have one last tragic joke to play. The scam failed. After all the investigations, all the theories, all the speculation, the official court verdict was basically just a big shrug. The cause of the abandonment was officially recorded as unknown but natural, a conclusion that explains absolutely nothing and leaves the door to the mystery wide open. So why do we still talk about this one ship? After more than a century and a half, what is it about the Mary Celeste that just refuses to fade away? I think it's because, at its heart, this is a human story without a final chapter. No trace of Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their little daughter Sophia, or any of the 7 crewmen was ever found. It's as if the ocean simply swallowed them whole, leaving behind nothing but an empty ship as a silent, floating tombstone. And maybe this is the best way to understand its legacy. The Mary Celeste is more than just a historical puzzle. It taps into something much deeper in all of us, our collective fear of the unknown, and our endless, driving curiosity to try and explain it. It remains an unanswered question, just floating on the vast, mysterious sea of history.